Welcome into episode number 14 of Cashin The Check. I am your host, Tyler Asher.
I am your co-host, Tiffany Anton. We're excited you're here.
This is number 14. I mean, this is
14.
We've done a lot of these.
We have.
Had some great guests.
We have had some great guests. It's been pretty exciting.
It is. Got a guest on today's show.
I'm excited for all the support that we've had. We've had over 1,000 downloads.
I'd like to get to 5,000 downloads.
Powered by Her is at 10,000 downloads. Thank you very much.
I'm just not as cool as you.
So what are we going to do right now?
Let's go back to Ducks in the Row.
Quack, 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 quack.
This is exactly why we cut this out, is because of that right there.
Quack. Okay.
All right, lay it on us.
We're going to do some jokes. So why was the sapling such a horrible entrepreneur?
Because he stuck to everything?
Because he couldn't branch out. How can you tell if someone is an entrepreneur?
They never sleep.
Don't worry, they'll tell you.
That's so funny with what we do. That's a day job.
Here's an Elon Musk one. People always talk about how great of an entrepreneur Elon Musk is, yet he's yet to create a cologne called Elon's Musk.
Makes me think of like Stetson or something like that.
Yeah, like
some Musk. Musk for men, and that it?
Remember the Friends episode where Joey's he's dresses as a cowboy? I don't know, he just sprays everybody. Anyway, I met an old friend from high school the other day. I couldn't believe how wealthy he had become. He ran a massively successful business, but he could barely get a passing grade in math class when I knew him. I asked him how he did it. He said it was easy. All I did was find a product I could make for $2 and sell it for $4. You'd be surprised just how much 2% adds up over the years. It's not 2%, but...
Oh, weren't you a math teacher?
I was a math teacher. Mm-hmm. What do you call a Korean entrepreneur?
I don't know.
A sole proprietor. Why did the entrepreneur decide to go into the landfill business?
Oh, this is probably a good one.
He heard it was a growing field.
That's very true. Trash is a huge deal.
I'm an entrepreneur.
And?
How did you get started in this industry? None of your business.
Go on, we're wrapping it up.
I've made millions from my breakfast businesses. I'm a serial entrepreneur.
That's kind of funny. Too funny.
There you go.
Well, today's episode, oh my
On that
gosh. We got Amanda Howard coming in. She's a local attorney. We're going to talk a little bit about business, legal, just kind of give you like a 30,000-foot view of if you're a business owner, what you should do, what you should not do.
And she just opened her own business
She just
as well.
opened up her own business as well. So I thought it'd be a great take of getting someone who's done it, does it every day, can see a lot of things. So stay tuned. Thanks for keeping her seat warm. But
of course, I do.
You got to get out of here. So
all right, peace out.
Stay tuned. Welcome into our Big Picture segment. I am excited to have a local attorney here with us. Amanda Howard is here. So we're going to talk a little bit about some basic legal stuff. We're going to try to keep it a little broad, but just some ideas. So Amanda is an attorney here in the Upper Cumberland. She has 2 kids, and you actually are an entrepreneur yourself as well. So you own other things. So I thought this is kind of like the perfect medium to bring someone who's entrepreneur, an attorney. So thanks for coming. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So let's just I love to just dive right into this. Let's just keep it kind of broad, because I know like people are like, oh, you can get super specific when it comes to law and how you should do things. Let's say I have a fresh new business idea and I want to start a business. From your perspective, what's give us some the top 3 things you should do.
Okay, well, full disclosure, this is not legal advice.
Yeah, you better say that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll run all that at the end of this. So the big thing I would recommend for sure is having a business plan. That just goes back to the basics, sketching it out and figuring out, first of all, what are you going to name it? Something as simple as that. Folks kind of have all these crazy names. I had one lady say, I want to use a logo. You can't use a logo as your name. You have to actually have a typed out name. But go to the Secretary of State's website, Trey Hargett's office. You can even call.
If you're in Tennessee.
Yep, absolutely. And you can actually search to make sure that name's available. That's kind of where you begin. And then figuring out what kind of business structure you want, whether you want a sole proprietorship like we discussed, or an LLC, or a corporation. There's many different options that you have. Figuring that out, and then seeing what you need to do next as far as, figuring out if you need a CPA, we talked about that too. As far as like, that's my biggest recommendation for folks is find a CPA for sure to help you guide you tax wise.
Because they're probably the most. I always said this when I was in insurance. There's like 4 or 5 people that are kind of like your top 5. You're usually attorneys kind of in your top 5. Your CPA, your insurance agent, maybe your banker. Those are kind of like your top 5, top 4, top 5, because those people, every decision they do can affect your business one way or the other.
Absolutely.
And so having a good relationship with a CPA, having a good relationship with an attorney, to me, from my years in business, is super productive. Because what would it take someone texting you or emailing you and say, hey, I've got this, I'm considering doing this, and they're not thinking big picture, and you come back and you're like, no, don't do that. Whatever you do, that is not what you need to do, because that can save you thousands or tons
absolutely.
of money down the road.
Absolutely. Thinking that you need a corporation S corp when in reality you can just do a simple LLC, which is way more flexible, cheaper. You don't have to have board directors. There's different options there with an LLC for sure. How
important is it when business owners decide, after they speak to their CPA, how important is it to have an attorney set things up correctly? Like long term, even because it does cost money. We don't sugarcoat it. Absolutely. You have to get paid. You went to school. You've got all your license. You do this correctly. How important is it to get an attorney to set up your company structure correctly?
It's going to keep you out of litigation, absolutely. Not always, but most of the time, because it clears up. Especially like an LLC, if you have a partnership with 2 individuals. Most LLCs are closely related to individuals, like family LLCs you see. If they're not, dwindling down, if that falls apart, is where we see most of our litigation at, because folks don't get along.
Right.
And figuring out how do you dissolve that LLC or that corporation. And that needs to be set up in your articles of organization and your bylaws. You really have to make sure those are properly written and has specific details of your agreement, because it's set up differently. I had somebody call the other day, and their setup's completely different than most, and so they don't have anything in writing either. And that's the biggest thing that I find is folks don't get it in writing. And so when it falls apart, it's when we always have them call lawyers and say, okay, what do I do next? The partners aren't getting along, and so it's up in the air. And then ultimately that means that we're going to have to ask a judge basically
to decide.
Absolutely, and
that
doesn't know either side. Absolutely,
because there's no winner in that.
Absolutely, because you're going to be out. Both sides are going to be out attorney's fees, and it's going to be time consuming.
So let me ask you this. So we had this conversation prior to this. We both have kids. How important is it as a business owner to have your personal affairs in order, as far as maybe your will? You own a business, and I always tell people too, like, it's like having another kid.
Absolutely.
If you have 3 or 4 businesses, that's like having 3 or 4 kids. How important is it to have something like a will that specifically, I don't know this, can it lay out what you want to do with those businesses, or does it allow certain person to be in charge? How important is that? I know it's very important, but what are some, maybe you're on here and people are like, well, do I need a will because I own a business?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone over the age of 18 needs a will. I do very simple, basic wills. When we get into the estate planning, I highly recommend getting an experienced estate plan attorney, because they can set up trusts and help you as far as tax saving advantages. But the biggest thing with that, it simplifies your wishes for your loved ones. And so you can actually designate who's in charge, who's going to handle those business affairs for you. So it's absolutely important to do that. And you can specify in your will. And then also absolutely, the wills, you can do it.
Right.
And you can determine how you want to move forward.
How many times have you saw this where, we start out as a sole proprietor, maybe it's a husband, they get going, and then something happens to the husband and the wife doesn't know what to do with the business, and there's no like written directives or anything, and then it creates this monster mess. Have you been involved in anything like that?
Absolutely. Most of the time we get involved, it's usually with a divorce. And so we're having to figure out what the husband's business and all that. But absolutely that happens often just because folks don't take the time. And it doesn't take that much time. It's actually a simple thing to do an operating agreement as far as partners and stuff are concerned to get that. But keeping up your paperwork is huge. I tell folks you can go buy a binder, stick all this paperwork, anything you think's important.
Stick it in your safe.
Stick it in your binder, and make sure that you have everything. So a loved one, and this is the example I give them. If you pass away right now, you're going to pay lawyers, CPAs, all these folks to figure out your business and what's going on. When it's a simple thing of having that binder, stick everything in there, having one place that you have it. At the same time, even hiring someone to do that for you when you get big like that, I highly recommend that. That's when your CPA comes involved or your bookkeeper,
Right?
To keep good books and
And
keep
have a good
everything
relationship
organized.
with them.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. If I can tell you who
Yeah,
I use,
go for it.
Alan and Roberts here locally in Putnam County is the best decisions I ever made. Paul Roberts and Michael, great, easy to work with. They've made sure I can stay organized,
Right.
and folks think it's difficult because I have to take off work and go down there and meet with them. You actually don't. I hardly ever see them.
Send them emails.
Right. We scan everything in, and they're great
Yeah.
to get back with me. But that's the best decision I've made in all my businesses and my structure and setting that up. And they keep me organized. And QuickBooks is a great program. When you get big, I mean,
Even small QuickBooks.
yeah, buy quick. It's easy to use. I think folks are intimidated and thinks it's difficult to learn these new things. But there's folks you can hire to do it for you.
I saw a YouTube video the other day that it was learn QuickBooks in 10 minutes. And I watched the video, and it basically did enough for you to show you how to get things set up. Because I see this all the time. People come to us and they're like, man, I don't know if I'm making money. And I'm like, do you know do you have your profit and loss? And they're like, what's a profit and loss? And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so we've got to boil it back down to basics. So for as we get close to wrapping up this segment, I want to jump over into your wheelhouse. So you do a lot of real estate attorney, a lot of real estate closings. And so maybe we got a business owner here that says, hey, I'm finally going to buy a building. I finally want to buy my own building and kind of branch out and do some stuff. What are some things from the legal side, just quickly, that they should look at when they're looking at buying a building?
Well, I mean, is it going to be cost efficient for you to even buy? Is it better to rent it, to lease it? That's the big thing. Can you afford to do that? And there's different avenues to go throughout that, but.
I like putting people on the spot.
Well, no, it's a great question, honestly. And I'm actually in that position now. Do I want to buy this building? And for me, it's absolutely an advantage to purchase this building because of the location. It's just going to be, it's a great investment
Right.
for me as a business owner to have that. But you also have to look at maintenance of buildings too. Is it worth it? How much maintenance is involved? How much does it cost to keep the building up? There's so many things that go into it.
Ooh, I'm going to jump over. You just said something, and I thought of this. Let's say you're a business owner and you sell, let's just say you sell cakes and you want to buy a building. Does the cake business buy the building, or would you recommend creating another company that buys the building and then you lease it back to yourself?
I actually buy it personally. That's how I have my building in Fentress County. I bought my practice, my building. It's in my name. I actually lease it back to my law practice, and that's a tax advantage in order to do that. So that's how we do that. Yeah, absolutely. Tell folks to do that for sure.
I love it.
But you have to think about taxes too. Folks don't think about property taxes, all these other added things that you look at the bottom line and you can't afford to even make the payment. And
Right.
So, but there's all these mortgage companies, all these avenues for lending, which you're obviously know all about. So I would definitely talk to some of those folks to see if it's worth the.
Gotcha. So as we wrap up this segment, I always like to add this in. What's your favorite part of your job?
Which one? Because I have two businesses.
Let's talk about the attorney side first.
Absolutely. The best thing that I'm involved in is getting to help veterans and hearing these stories that they talk about in their life and what they've gone through. And it's been a blessing to help veterans for sure. And to help just folks that are just clueless about things. I went to school to learn and to help folks, and to sit across someone and say, hey, I didn't save the world, but I saved their world. And
Right.
so it's a great feeling to get to help people.
Okay, let's talk about the other business. What's your favorite part there?
So I opened up the Fastest Labs, bought a franchise during the middle of a pandemic.
That's okay.
And it's doing great. I'm excited that it's doing great and getting to help folks. I had a lady that couldn't get a DNA test quickly, and that's why I was inspired to find out, okay, this can't be that difficult to do a DNA test. And so I bought this franchise, and we've been able to, for instance, we've been able to connect a father here in Putnam County to a daughter in a different country.
Awesome.
And we did a DNA test. They did it there in Germany, and he did it here in Putnam County. And so it's just
That's
been great
awesome.
to be able to help folks and give them some peace of mind and not having the stress of having to wait 2 or 3 weeks to figure out what's going on in their situation. So
I love it. I love
Yeah.
hearing stories and we actually got to be a part of helping that. So it's really cool to see this kind of come to fruition. So thank you
yes,
for
sir.
being
Thank
on
you.
here today.
I'm excited.
So stay tuned. We're going to jump right into drinking the Kool-Aid on our next segment of the podcast. Well, thank you, Amanda, for talking about the big picture segment. And now it's to our favorite.
Drinking the Kool-Aid.
I don't have anything to drink.
Mine's water anyway.
Sure, it's water.
I got tap water from here, and it actually tastes a little weird. It tastes like it's laced with something, so I'm not sure what is going on.
Luke, what'd you put in the water?
God, the West Side water. So drinking the Kool-Aid.
Let's talk about this. I think this is an important part of owning a business or being a business owner is, regardless where you're at, is spousal support.
Yeah.
Because I see this a lot of times with business owners, that the spouses or the business owner themselves is fully on board and they are all in, they are bought in, they are ready to second mortgage the house, they're going to do everything, and then they go home and it is like a lead balloon.
You ain't doing that.
That's it.
You ain't doing that.
And that changes everything, because then it, like, their ambition and their drive just gets deflated. So how important is it that you have the buy-in of your spouse, significant other?
I think that there's definitely a balance of both ways, because you cannot have two people who are like, yep, let's mortgage the house. I don't even, is that the way you say it? Whatever.
Yeah.
Let's sell off our cars and our children and let's go all, I believe in this business that much. You need some sort of grounding, some sort of rock to say, okay, let's think this through. Let's, because most of the time, your time, money, energy of starting a business is going to play into your relationship and your home life.
Right.
And so you need some sort of buy-in, but you need a rock to kind of ground you as well a little bit.
I love the fact of if having great spousal support at home is, it allows you to go out and do your things. If they understand, like, hey, you've got to work late, they know that. Or, hey, what can I do to make it better? Hey, can I get supper ready for you and it'll be ready? Can you come do that? Can you? I think that's extremely important, because then it allows you, it knows you have support at home. You can go home and they understand. They may not understand like what you're going through, but they understand that, hey, you're working on things. You may be, your brain may be going when you're talking to them about other things. So I think that it's very important. You got to have the buy-in.
Well, and I think too, when entrepreneurship has such you kind of never stop, and what we do is very similar, that you don't have set hours. We don't work 8 to 5. And so I would have events at night. And when I was in a relationship a couple years ago, he was very upset with me working something at nighttime. Well, why, while I'm out of work, why are you not out of work? And it's like, well, that's not, you're just adding stress into my life that I don't need.
I will say, from my perspective, when I had the insurance agency, or I was in that line when we first got together, I just kind of made it clear, like, hey, my job, there are going to be nights that I've got to work late. Now, I think also as an entrepreneur that if you do that, you need to be willing to take off those early days to do something, with them or for them, so that they see both sides of the working late. But yeah, I took off early on Friday, and maybe you get the laundry done, or I know that's a meaningless task, but it's something that they appreciate. You were being gone late and doing a chore or something that helps them out. I feel like that's an important compromise.
Yeah. So along the lines of what Amanda was just talking about, is it offensive if you don't will your business to your significant other?
No, but I don't think so, because there may be a key employee who has been by your side a long time. Yeah. And so maybe your kids or your spouse don't want anything to do with the business. And so maybe that it gets willed to them and they make some payments to you or something along those lines. Like I think of a business that I know of where the children don't have anything to do with the business, but the owner and someone that's been there for about 20, 23 years, they work very close, very hand in hand. I can see that owner, if something was to happen to him, saying, listen, you just pay my son X number of dollars and the business is yours.
Yeah.
And you've worked in it. The customers know who you are. I don't think that that's offensive at all.
Well, and sometimes even when you do will it to family, and maybe it's a child or a spouse, and they are the owners and they are the decision makers, but they don't really want it, then they kind of make things more painful for the rest of the business.
Correct, they do. And I think that goes back to the conversation we had with Amanda, is setting things up correctly when everyone's in a great state of mind.
Yeah. Where you don't think you need it.
Yes. It is very, very beneficial. Like I always encourage families, when everyone's in a good frame of mind, that's when you need to do your will. That's when you need to do your life insurance. That's where you need to talk about the end of care things, for your spouse or, mom and dad. Hey, what are we going to do in the event that they can't take care of themselves? And everyone's in a good frame of mind. That's the perfect time to discuss that. Now, I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it because it's not something like, hey, let's talk about your funeral today.
Yeah.
Or that's not a subject people just want to talk about, but it needs to be discussed. And so it goes back to like having spousal support. If your spouse is in this business and they understand what you do, they're going to want the best for you and they want the business to succeed. So I think it's important to talk to them when they have a great mindset. I also think, of course, you know this, I'm big on the Enneagrams, and I think if you know what number your significant other is, you know how to relay your business message to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important that a lot of people don't take into account. If they've got someone who is a planner, you need to put it in a position that they understand it. If they are very much like me, like fly by the seat of your pants, I'm a 7 if anybody's on there. Like I'm the free spirit.
So do you know what your wing is? Are you 7?
I'm a 7 wing 8, and my wife is a 6 wing 7.
I am an 8 wing 7.
See?
So we're reverse of each other.
And I think that's important because
I'm the one that plans the notes.
Yeah, I come in here and they're like, "What are you talking about?" I don't know. I'll figure it out. I think that's important because you need a little bit of that in your business because that helps you, but also it helps you be able to talk to your significant other about like your plan or what you want to do with the business and how you want to make it grow, or if you want to, like I said, second mortgage the house because you have an opportunity. You got to know how to talk to them.
So in your situation, you had an insurance business.
Correct.
And your wife was a teacher. Was it your business or was it a family? Like, did you feel
I always
like
said it was our business because I would make decisions that then I would look at the full picture, or then if I had to make certain decisions, I would always talk to my wife of like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What are your inputs on that? What, when it comes to hiring somebody, here was the list and here's what we did. And so I always think that it's important that you get their input. It is our business. It's not just...
Well, or even, again, you talked to Amanda about buying a building for your business. So if you're going to go and buy your business, and she said that she personally bought it, okay, that is I assume most spousal relationships have shared finances.
And you're going to have the joint income probably.
Right. So
you better be on the same page.
Right. So you would purchase a building together and make sure that, that's... You both had to buy in.
I think too is it goes back to communication and going back to what Amanda said. Like you have the business plan. I think a lot of people throw shade toward a business plan, but I think it's important. I think when you have those items written down on paper, you can see where you want to go and what you want the business to do, and then it also keeps the other person kind of in check. It keeps your spouse kind of in check and seeing where you want to go and what you want to do so that they know about it up front. If you say, hey, within 3 years, I want to buy the place I'm in, they know at month 24 or month 30, hey, I told you 2.5 years ago I wanted to buy this building. We're coming up on this.
Yeah.
So, how are you? I remember you saying you want to do this. I think this is a great idea. Business is good, whatever.
One thing I'm going to say, too, is that, so you need a buy-in from your spouse.
Correct.
But I don't think that they have to be your only source of emotional or they don't have to be your only cheerleader. So let's say you have a business of a women's initiative and your husband may not feel as vested into that as
Correct.
you may. So you might surround yourself with some other people who can give you that emotional support, but they still need that kind of buy-in of
Correct.
just, yes, what we're doing here is okay. And
I think it too is you have your spouse's support, and they may not. I always encourage people not to have your spouse work in your business. I feel like you need to break that off. And I know some people who work with their spouse and they love it, and they've got a good work-life balance, which I think is extremely important. But I always like to know.
Kelly Fitzpatrick seems to be killing it in that area.
Well, I know like
both kinda,
Jason and Susie Petty, they own the window tint company. Like they work together every day, and so I think that's huge. And I think that's a blessing that if you can work together, at work and at home, that's huge. And so I like to give people the buy-in ability, but then your spouse can also go do their own thing. So like my wife's a teacher and she loves it, and that was her thing. So I always supported her. Like if she wanted to to do things or do extra stuff for the school. Like I treated that was her little business, and that's what she did. And I always made sure that I supported her as much as she supported me in my business endeavors.
Well, and like we talk about Amber Flynn Jarrett a lot on this podcast, but I think
her husband got into the business.
Yeah, because I think part of it was that he could see her quality of life was so much better than him. You know, he was working 6 days a week at the car lot, and he was doing so much, busting his butt, and so he was like, I kind of like the quality of life that, and from what she has said, that it's gone well for them to work together, and they
some
can
people do
their lives better together.
Some people can work well together, and I think that's a huge testament of, and also too, like communication. You're on the same, like being on the same field, I think is super important. Because if you guys are, I don't know, if you had a business where your husband wanted to do something and the spouse was like, I don't want to be a part of that. Yeah. I think it automatically creates tension, and you don't want it to do good because you're like, I told you.
Well, or even like if it's something that you totally don't understand, like a tech company where, we're doing bio, water, hydro something or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'm the type that I want people to succeed. I want them to be happy. Right. So if it's something you're passionate about, I can get behind you on that. But I'm not going to have work conversations with you. That's not going to be how that goes.
And like 10 years from now, when I understand a little bit of it.
Right.
And then you can, but also too, I think you're talking about like that. If you're a tech company or you're doing something like that, it's the perfect opportunity if you have a work conference and you can take your spouse to get some other things. I think that is a huge, huge benefit of giving your spouse or significant other a more deep dive into what you do every day and seeing the people that you're around, and you get on the same like passion train, and it kind of builds.
And likewise, as a spouse, it's probably good, even though this might not be a topic that you are excited about, it's probably good to support your spouse.
It makes you feel good.
And try and be, just get a little tidbit of that information so that you can understand better.
So as we talk about wrapping this up, we'll talk about this. So you had the Powered by Her 50th episode party. Okay. If you know my wife is very much an introvert. Her not going places is not her thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, look, Tiffany's doing this. I want to go and show support. Her and I work very closely together on a lot of things. We don't have to stay long, but I would like for you to go and at least meet and see some of the people I work with. You hear her talk about, and it was like a 2-week conversation. And she did come, and she said, "Oh, that was great." She said, "It's nice to put names and faces together that I get phone calls from at night, or I'm talking to people." She said, "It's just nice I get to see those people and see who they are." She said, but that was really uncomfortable. But she said, I am glad that I went. I get it. To me, that's a win.
Well, and likewise, for me, we work together. And so I want to meet. I hear so much about your wife all the time. And it's like, and I think when she walked in the door, I gave her a big hug. I was like, give me a hug. And it was a little probably overwhelming. I'm just not.
She had to spray with Lysol after that.
It happens. So anyway.
It's time for us to clock out.
Boop, boop. I don't know. Swipe it. What?
You don't make noise. Your machine does not make noise.
Oh
okay,
my gosh.
stop.
I feel like it needs some sort of end.
We're gonna punch the clock.
All right. So, subscribe, follow, tell your friends, tell your grandma, tell the grocer at the grocery store.
Good gosh. Just go like and share it and send it out. Leave us comments if you like the format we've kind of went to. I think we've got a few things in the work. Got some more guests coming, so I'm excited about that. Always the shout out to Mark Farley for letting us do that.
And Jeff Brown at Fizz Foundry.
So stay tuned. Enjoy it, guys. We're out.
Peace out.